And you know what else people don't even consider is there's a human element to it too, right? 1.5 to 5 is a lot of residential jobs. That's a lot of people that you're dealing with. Maybe does some commercial, right? But it's like how
Yeah.
much more people have to get to know and trust your brand. Like, I mean, that's what more
And
than
how many
triple
more
or
people do you
something.
need to bring onto your team too?
Yeah.
There's a lot of HR that goes in that kind of scale. You're talking about 3Xing your company essentially, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that means you got one PM, you need three. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got one crew, you need three. Like you're just not going to do it with the same amount of painters. You might need a second admin to
Mm-hmm.
help answer phones. Maybe you need.
Project coordinator, a position that you don't even think about until you get to that point, right?
I
Somebody
know.
that's just responsible for scheduling, moving things back, moving things up.
You might even end up with like a part-time or full-time HR person at that point,
Yeah.
someone to help recruit painters. Because that, like, I mean, recruiting, it has a lot of in common with marketing. It's essentially persuasion of a type.
Yeah.
There's more in common with marketing and hiring than there are differences. Um, but like you hire a marketer, right? At some point, you're gonna have to hire, someone to help interview and bring them painters, or that's all you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
You know,
Facts.
so you know,
I love that you brought up the HR because I think we both were in corporate America at one point. I think we had this conversation,
uh-huh.
but like you said, right, when you're at 5 million, it is no longer hey, everybody, here's your jobs, go do them. It's like, no, you got leaders, you got people reporting to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And dude, it's such a different business, right?
It is.
So I'm excited at the end of the year to go to this person and kind of debrief them, like, hey, how did everything go? What were the changes? Maybe that'd be a good podcast. I'll tell you after, who it
Yeah,
is
I
or
love to hear
whatnot.
it. Yeah.
That would be good.
Well,
Um,
Jason Phillips is a good example in that space. It's
mm-hmm.
like, uh, I hit a great thought leader in the space, and I follow him, and I've had a podcast with him, and he's a great dude. Everything he says is fantastic. But think about his position. I think if I remember right, he did like around 13 million last year,
Yeah.
right? And so, at that point, you are no longer a leader of a team. You are a leader of other leaders that are managing other teams, right? It's like another nested layer. So, I mean, he's not like managing individual field techs,
Yeah.
he's managing department heads who are then managing their teams,
Yeah. And
and
that's
so
not
yeah,
something you can just walk into role wise.
no,
You got to
you have
build
to
to be that
slowly evolve
person.
to that, right?
Yes.
It's a learned skill. Leadership is a skill.
Exactly.
Um, I don't know that. I mean, there's probably some people that are innately good at it at leadership, but for at least for me, it's not probably because I'm tech savvy. My brain works in like ones and zeros.
Little
Like that.
coding brain
Yeah,
just
dude.
going.
I think I commonly think about things in if else statements, like day to day
Mm,
life. I think in if else statements. It's really really weird. You don't want to be in my head. But for me, like leadership is like it's a constant learning thing.
yeah. Mm.
It's tough. Motivating and having team members that are part of a vision. It's a hard thing.
It's a huge responsibility.
Well, yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Th-
Um,
Think about the discipline that you have to carry in your life, right? Think about when nobody's looking, what are you doing, right? Like you are almost now a public figure when you run a company of his size, right? Obviously, he's doing
yeah.
events and whatnot, but
Yep.
it's like you are in your own organization, a public figure where people look up to, look for guidance, at least the good ones, right?
Yeah. And
um,
what happens if like you go out on a vendor and you get a DUI or you cheat on your wife
exactly.
or you have a vendor and you mistreat them and you have that, like, what does that say about you as a person to the rest of the team that's there, right?
It's
Um,
huge.
have you ever heard of a guy named Simon Sinek? Are you familiar with him?
Mm-mm.
So he's a really huge person in the leadership space. Like his whole business model is he coaches leaders. That's what he does. He's a TED Talk speaker and stuff. Got really a couple of really great books, a bunch of great TED Talks, and does coaching. I've bought a few of his programs and stuff. I've learned a lot from him. But
Yeah.
he has this one little short video where he talks about how he came into a hotel. I don't remember what kind of hotel it was, and he met like a bellboy or whatever. He's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And he asked because he's in like that kind of space, like, do you like your job? And the guy's like, "I love my job." And he's like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." And like my line of work, that's a really good thing. It's a good indicator. And
Yeah.
he asked that person, "Why do they love their job?" And he's like, "Well, because on a day-to-day basis, keep in mind it's like a bellboy, right? It's like on a day-to-day basis, all the managers at every level, like if they pass me by, they're just always asking like, hey man, how's it going with you? Is there anything I can do to help you? Right. And then the bellboy proceeds to tell Simon, I also have another job, like a night and weekend job at a different hotel. And there it's different. The managers don't ask me how I can help. They're constantly on lookout for what I mess up. And then they publicly like reprimand you when you make mistakes. And he's like, I'm not happy about my job. I go in, I do the very bare minimum, and I clock out. And his point was this: the same person, the same exact human being in two different environments had two different outcomes. And so like as a leader, that for me was like powerful, like really, really powerful.
And it's a lot. It's like that at a lot of, especially like, painting businesses. They had to figure out how to get these jobs done and get these people into play just to cover their production. Not even thinking, I'm getting this person to the next level in my organization. They're probably not even thinking that far.
Not yet.
They are hiring out of necessity, right? So these guys, they come with these problems, and you'd be surprised how many, probably not surprised, but it's amazing how many people come into certain organizations, right, as painters, as maybe production managers, and then after 2 weeks, they're out. And it's like, that guy wasn't a good fit. He sucked or whatever reason. And it's like, you didn't even take the time. One, your pre-screen process probably trash, but you probably didn't take the time to really understand what this person needed to be successful, or even had him prepared with SOPs or written down day to day, no training,
no feedback loops, no retraining.
You're setting them up for failure. That's essentially what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
So, if you don't have the time, and dude, you could use ChatGPT for this, right?
Yeah, you can.
How do I train a painter that comes into my organization? How do I train a production manager, right? It will give you what you need relatively close. I've tried it before.
Yeah, it's actually really good. I've done it too. I've used it to have some of my clients have like guidelines of like, here's what an employee handbook should look like, and it'll kind of spit out some things. And like at a core level, like when you bring someone on, I think the high level is like, I've heard this from a few different people, a few different ways, and I believe this to be true. Like as a business owner, as a leader, you have to set a vision that's high enough that encompasses the goals and visions of the other people in your organization. Mm-hmm. If someone inside of your company has a bigger goal than you, they're going to leave.
Yeah.
And so that's another big responsibility. But if I have this big vision, like of where I want to go, and I know that I need to think about the goals of the other people in the organization, the next thing is the plan. How am I going to get them there?
Yeah.
And like, how many painters have you met that have no like promotion plan? Or like a painter comes to the boss and says like, hey, I know you've been paying me $20 an hour. I think I'm worth 22. Can I have a raise? What's the plan? How do you handle that? Do you have like, a time/proficiency based, like, income growth plan for you people? Do you have like different positions with different pay scales? Like, what do you do?
And what's cool is, once you develop that system, right, you start to even think about other systems in your business that you can do that with and have more structure, right?
100%.
So for me, and you touched on like the estimating stuff, it's like, if I can't properly explain to my customer why we came to the price we came to, it's not going to be good for anybody, right? Because now I just look like I'm winging it. So it's like, what else are you winging, right? So it's not a good precedent, one. But two, when your guys say, hey, or your subcontractor, hey, I think you underpaid me for this job. Well, now we're based off feelings. I can't even go to the data and say, well, here's how many hours we have spec'd for this. Here's the prep we involved to make sure you are set up for success, right? If you don't have that, again, you're at a disadvantage, and now you don't look like the guy who has it together, who would want to work for somebody that doesn't have those things together.
Hey, if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. If you're looking for help growing your contracting business, I invite you to join my free community. In there, we go live with amazing trainings, share resources and downloads, plus you get free help from me and from peers. That link is down below to join, and we'll see you in the next video.